Bank of Canada launches public consultations on a digital dollar. And it's been said all over the government websites. They've defined CBDCs on the Canadian website at various points for years now. And they always said, there's no plans officially to do it, but we'll let you know when it happens. And time is here. They are consulting the public on getting a CBDC going. Central bank digital currency. It's going to get lit up in here. If you love your freedom, well, get used to not having it. Woo!
Well, what's interesting too is like I had this conversation with a good buddy of mine, and I was like, "What do you think of this?" He's like, "This is awful." I was like, "How often do you use cash?" "Absolutely never." I'm like, "Yeah, me either." It's like the last time I had like actual cash and coins on me, I'm trying to think, like probably to pay the bridge toll before I got the Mac Pass. Honestly, like just like it's already here. And something I was kind of thinking about, like, do you think removing the penny was kind of like a test of like if we start like slowly taking currency away? I know that the problem with the penny was that the copper that it was made of was worth more than the actual money it was supposed to represent. And I'm wondering if we're getting to that point with our other coins, basically, where it's just like this is worth more as a metal than it is as currency. Well, and so,
can we have that conversation then, sir, please?
Yeah,
like why that's happening. But yeah, like what they claim, one of the benefits they're saying about having a CBDC is that you can have full control of the money supply, so you can control inflation. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of what I'm thinking too is going to happen is like their goal is just to burn our current system to the ground and say, hey, we know inflation hurt a lot of you. We're now going to introduce a new currency that, can counter inflation. How about that? And just like really kind of give these arguments that really will kind of make this a little more digestible for people. But we just know that, at least I know, the currencies that we're kind of seeing, like or CBDCs in particular, they're just too, like, as you said, we have a version of it now, right? Everything's digitized. You can't take more than $10,000 out of the bank. Or
can't e-transfer more than $3,000.
Exactly. Like there's all kinds of things for our safety out there of the amount of money you can move at any time.
Yeah, it was just so interesting. Like the other day I was at the bank to go take our down payment out for the house. And I was like, hey, I need this in a bank draft. It's to DCL Law, like had the lawyer's name right on the paperwork. And I had to have 3 different representatives come over and ask me what I wanted the money for.
3?
Yeah. And I was like, so we had the teller at the beginning who asked me. Then we had her manager who came over, and then we had the supervisor come over. And I was like, are you serious right now? Like, I so badly wanted to say drugs. I wanted to be like, we're taking 60 grand and we're just going to make it rain. We're making it snow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do you think I'm doing with this money? It's going to a lawyer. Like, so I get worried when I see these things because I'm just like, if people are that concerned with money that you can clearly see where it's going, it's like, they're just looking for absolute control over the money, And so I think it opens the door for programmable money. And then so like when you look at different programs that are put in place by the government where money is distributed out, it'll be this money is programmable only for this, and this, or is it programmable only for this business, and that business? So it's like, it's the slippery slope, right?
Totally. I mean, anyone who uses like any of like the products that Intuit provides, whether it be a Mint, for example, which they purchased years ago. They already have it kind of programmed. They've done a good job even in their system when you're kind of trying to figure out how to budget money. Like they assume when they see certain transactions come in that it fits into a category. Like the system's like it's there to a degree.
Yeah, it's good.
And like they know how to categorize things. When you get that into the money side of it, like people will tend to kind of come back with, there's no way they're going to minimize like where we can spend our money and if we have like enough credits or whatever. And I'm like, we're kind of there. Like it just, it's not going to take much more convincing to get to that point, at least with where things are currently at. And so that's why public consultation right now, the CBDCs, it's like, all right, boys, the US is looking to launch FedNow in July. Our Canadian CBDC is now, talks are starting. How much longer do you think it will be? I don't know. I think give it another 18 months.
Definitely. And one of the things that I'm thinking too is like, how much of this information is going to go back to them and then going to be cherry picked, right? So I work as a researcher and an evaluator. And so one of the things that I do is like my bread and butter is surveys. And so we survey the nonprofit sector and ask them like specific questions. And then when we get that information back, one of the things we do is we look for themes. And if something doesn't fall within the theme, you kind of like other it. You put it to the side and you're like, there was this theme, this theme, this theme, and then so-and-so number of others. So if you have a survey like this and then you write it in such a way where it's supportive of a CBDC, and then you have people who like in those open text fills where they actually like come right out and say like, no, we don't want this, or we think this is a bad idea. You can just other that. You can put that in the other category and then point to the other questions that are specifically designed to give you the answers that you're looking for. So I'm like, my first thought is like, definitely go fill this out because we need enough responses in the other category to actually make it large enough that it becomes significant. But the other thing is like, I don't know if I trust the actual responses that you're going to get from this, because if they're already in a place where they're like, this is where we want to go and this is how we want to do it, like you're gonna see that happen. But it's just, again, not saying that it's useless to fill out that information, because it still has to get counted, especially if there's a loud enough opposition.
Yeah. And I think you bring a good point. What you just described is thematic analysis 101.
Yeah.
That's how this thing works, right? You kind of figure out where like the general answers are, and they're kind of all around the same answer. So you kind of group them, and then the ones that are others, you said that you kind of pull them out and kind of put them just to the side. And even in UX, that happens a lot too, in user experience design, where you put things other, and you have in mind, it's like, yeah, we'll look at it a little later, but we're going to focus on things that are like common themes, but you set up the questionnaire, you set up the interview guide. If you weren't cautious, good UX designers make sure they don't ask leading questions, making sure that they think the round of questioning is as unbiased as possible to introduce as many diverse answers as you possibly get. But as you said, if people want biased answers, if they want to bias, a questionnaire, it's not hard to do.
Oh no. And like we saw it happen in like a really good example, like with the Port Authority in Halifax. So basically what happened was they sent out a survey that was like, here are the different options. Like we can either expand the port where it currently is. That will like save time and money. And they're like, or we can spend a whole bunch of hard-earned tax money on building a new port that's over in Dartmouth. Ew. Which do you pick? Like I was like, well, there's like no contest here when you write it like that. So
I'm going to ask this just because I'm curious, mainly because I want to get down to the nitty gritty of it. Is obviously you're being facetious in terms of what you're explaining there. What do you remember? What kind of the general wording was for each answer,
the points that were made in each answer? The first one was like convenient, already existing, unobtrusive, and then the second answer was expensive, costly, time consuming, disruptive. And so it's the same thing that they can do with this, right? It's like, how do you write a survey about CBDCs that will kind of sway the answers to whatever way that they want? And so I feel like that's the dark side of UX, and it's the dark side of analysis, right?
Sorry to interrupt this episode, but if you could all like, comment, and subscribe, it truly helps us out in the long run. We look at all the comments and the feedback, and it means the world to us. Thanks for watching.